Excellencies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to this 36 IULTCS Congress 2021 held here in Addis Ababa, city. On behalf of the organizing committee, therefore, once again, I would like to extend our warm welcome and thank for all of you who are physically here with us, as well as joining us online from wherever you are around the globe. Today, we have more than 240 participants from the industrial experts, professionals, government officials, academia, and others joining this Congress. We will have a total of 38 high-class scientific papers to be presented orally and 76 posters during our 3 days Congress duration. Our thematic areas of these papers are scientific research of laser, fashion, lifestyle, laser products and design innovation, composite materials and utilization of laser waste resources, laser industry entrepreneurship and the progress towards sustainability, environmental management technologies in laser industry, cleaner technology for the laser processing, intelligent manufacturing of laser products and laser chemicals. Obviously, these papers will be presented in different sessions. We will have 9 sessions for oral presentation and 7 sessions for poster. I'm sure all those scientific materials will spark curiosity, enthusiasm, and eagerness in all of us to follow closely. Our opening ceremony will start with national anthem. I humbly request all of you to stand up for the national anthem of Ethiopia. Thank you. This will be followed by the IULTCS anthem. Still, I request you to remain stand. Thank you very much. Be seated. Thank you. We'll pass to some opening messages from our dignitaries. I would like first to make mention of our Professor Munihija Munikione, who is the President of the Congress and Executive Director of Africa Laser and Laser Products Institute, who really played a great role in bringing this great Congress to Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, to be jointly hosted by Africa Laser and Laser Products Institute and the Ministry of Industry of the federal government, democratic government of Ethiopia. He is not able to be with us this morning due to small sickness. I am happy to report to you that at this time he is joining us online, he is following us. But allow me to invite the acting executive director, Mr. Xavier Gebremadre to give the welcome message. Thank you. Welcome.
Jean-Pierre Coalino, IULTCS President, Excellency Ambassadors and Heads of Delegates, distinguished IULTCS Secretariat members, speakers, colleagues, distinguished participants, all protocols observed. A very welcome to all of you, and would like to thank you for joining the 36th IULTCS Congress. On behalf of Africa Laser and Laser Products Institute, I would like to present my compliments to all participating in this opening ceremony and express to you my deep satisfaction for sharing this important moment for which I believe will contribute to the development of the laser sector. The oral and poster speakers, delegates, and to all participants who are participating either physically or virtually, I am grateful, greatly honored and pleased to welcome you to Addis Ababa or to the Congress virtual platform on behalf of Africa Laser and Laser Products Institute. We are indeed honored to have you in the Congress. We have about 300 participants from all over the world gathered today, making Addis Ababa truly an international laser city. This gathering of the laser scientists, technologists, and the laser family here in Addis Ababa is an opportunity for Africa laser sector to bridge the gap of the development of the laser sector and enable establish networking with the global players. This Congress is a special occasion for Africa Laser and the Laser Products Institute and Africa Laser sector. It will be an occasion to meet, discuss, to learn, and to plan for the future development of the laser sector in the world and in Africa in particular.
Recording in progress.
The 36th IULTCS Congress is organized by ALPI in collaboration with the government of the Federal Republic of Ethiopia. The organizing committee has done an excellent work preparing the Congress. I would like to thank them for their commitment and competence during the organization process. I would like to thank Professor Mokonnan Hailemaryam not only for his tireless works in the preparation of the Congress, but also for his leadership during the preparation of the organization of the Congress. I would like to thank the government of the Federal Republic of Ethiopia in general, and especially for the Ministry of Industry, Lidi, for traveling with us in all the preparations of the Congress as co-hosts. Special thanks go to IULTCS Secretariat in general and to Dr. Luis Zugano, Dr. Ansokom, and Dr. Specifically for without their support, the realization of the Congress would have been hard to realize. Thank you so much. We are fortunate to have the support of a great cadre of sponsors whom I hope you will get to meet here in the Congress Hall or on the Congress virtual platform during the duration of the Congress. As gold sponsors, we have TFL. As silver sponsors, we have Peters Global. As bronze sponsors, we have ATC, Chromagenia Unit, Bachmann International, CICB, and ILCO. We'd like also to thank our media partners. The 36th IULTCS is organized under the term Greening the Laser Value Chain, with the implication that the Congress scientific papers will concentrate on processes of renewable resources and environmental concerns. We have today with us laser technologists, chemists, academicians, and laser professionals. I hope that these 3 days Congress allows the laser technologists, chemists, and laser professionals to share, discuss, and answer to the current challenges in the laser sector. With these few words, I hope the conducting of this Congress in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, will contribute to the opening up of new networks, broader cooperation, and more integration of the laser sector in general and Africa in particular. I also wish for those who are attending the Congress physically an interesting and pleasant stay in Addis Ababa. And for those attending the Congress virtually, I wish them all the best wherever they are. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Mr. XXXVI. Please join me to applause for the remarkable speech once again. Thank you. Now, I kindly request the IULTCS President, Dr. Luis Zuitño, really who helped us a lot even in the organization of this Congress, to give his welcome speech. I'm sure he's online with us. Over to you, Dr. Luis. Is Dr. Luis hearing us? Yeah, he's with us. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor. Well, I'm going to give my message here. Dear IULTCS colleagues, on behalf of all the IULTS members, I would like to extend a warm welcome to all the participants of the 36th IULTS Congress. For 3 days, Addis Ababa will be the scientific leather center of the world. Our Congress offers a superb opportunity to all participants to share world-class technical knowledge, information, networking, and experiences. We all wanted to be there today, but it was not possible at this time. Strong scientific program is a good balance of basic research, applied technology, new applications, environmental and sustainability work. We have 38 oral presentations, as Professor said, and 76 visual presentations. We thank all the authors that made the effort to submit abstracts and making the presentations, both oral and visual. That will make an impact now on the Congress in the years to come. Your presence here should be a motivator to continue working in leather science. All IULTS members should be proud of the achievements of our organization. We have 123 years of history in science, and we have built a very strong fraternity. Our 36th International Congress always represented the best on science, technology, and has been continually a great start for the young scientists. Our organization is solid, and we need a continued support to keep it strong and prepare for the future. I ask that everybody participates in the local associations. We need to fortify our local associations because we are as strong as the weakest link that we have. I can assure you that your work will be very well rewarded if you participate in the associations. Finally, I want to thank all the organizers and sponsors. I'm happy to see Professor Winnie here today because he planned many years ago to bring IULTCS to Ethiopia, and he succeeded very efficiently. And he succeeded to have a very world-class Congress here in Ethiopia. Thank you very much, Professor Winnie. I also want to thank Professor Mekanon and his team for the years of commitment, dedication, and hard work to make this Congress to happen. We know it was not easy. When comes Friday, the Congress finish, I think if all of you are going to be happy because your mission was very well accomplished. Thank you very much. Leather is our passion, and we are all glad here for the opportunity to make our contribution. I'm still very optimistic about the future of our industry, because I believe that we're going to work to find the proper solutions, one by one, of what is ahead. We need inspiration and transpiration also. Thank you for your participation work. Welcome to a great Congress, and keep tanning. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Dr. Lee, thank you very much for this very inspiring message, encouraging message. We are very happy. We are also very grateful to you for all the support. Kindly, can you connect His Excellency Dr. Tarek IULTCS, the State Minister of Industry, to
Honorable
give the official
Mr.
opening.
Gianperi Gualino, President of the International Union of Laser Technologists and Chemistry Society, Excellency, Ambassadors, and Head of Delegations, distinguished International Union of Laser Technology and Chemistry Society, Secretarial members, researchers, colleagues, distinguished and participants, and guest speakers. On behalf of Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, the Minister of Industry, and my own behalf, I welcome all of you who are physically present here at the Congress Hall in the beautiful city of Addis Ababa, and those of you who join virtually from around the globe. My country, Ethiopia, is honored to host this prestigious global event organized for the second time in Africa in the Union more than 120 years of existence. As all we agree, the laser sector and textile are the key win sector, which helped many of developed countries to transform their economies. Africa holds nearly a quarter of global livestock population that constitute base for the laser industry development. My country, Ethiopia, ranks first in Africa and 10th in the world in terms of livestock numbers. However, revenue generated from this huge natural resource is very limited due to limited value addition and the linkage to the global value chain at commodity level. Ladies and gentlemen, our national development plans, the laser and the laser product manufacturing sector has been identified as a priority sector, and the government has been supporting this sector, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, which disturbed the global market. I've noted from the agenda of 36 Congress that with the theme of greening the laser value chains, the Congress will be focusing on science and technology surrounding the making of laser. Considering the complexity of the global laser value chain with regard to the required deep knowledge in science and technology and environmental concern, I'm confident that the exciting lineup of speakers will share interesting and valuable information on the pressing global issue challenging the laser sector development. Continued creativity and innovation in the laser industry will improve the image of the global tanning industry, especially with regard to pollution and environmental sustainability. As all we agree, arrangements for a congress of this sort, particularly with the prevailing COVID-19 pandemic situation, are very complex and challenging. Thus, my special word of thanks goes to the Africa Laser and Laser Product Institute for successfully organizing the Congress. I also thank all of you who have contributed in one way or another to make the Congress a reality. Distinguished guests and participants, let me now conclude by expressing sincere wish that the discussion and the deliberation resulting from the 3 days congress to come will positively contribute to the consolidation of the aim of the International Union of Laser Technologists and Chemists Society, and thereby to enhance the development and sustainability of the laser industry. It's now my great pleasure to declare this Congress officially open on a hybrid mode from Addis Ababa, and wishing you a delightful and stimulating Congress. Thank you.
Now we will have the IULTCS Merit Award of Excellency, who will be handled by Mr. Jean-Pierre Guadagno, the incoming president, I'm sure, of the IULTCS.
So, good morning, everybody. Let me first present a brief CV of Dr. Ramasamy. So, Dr. Ramasamy has been chosen as the winner of the prestigious IULTCS Merit Award for Excellence in the Laser Industry. Dr. Ramasamy is known for his significant contributions to the chemistry of chromium as a scientist and leadership to the Indian laser sector as a technologist and to science as a civil servant. He developed a unified theory of tanning by probing molecular level understanding of tanning systems. More than 12 technologies developed by his group are in commercial exploitation, and several of them have been developed from first principle without international equivalence. He has guided more than 30 students for their doctoral research and authored more than 237 research publications, 8 chapters in books, and numerous journal articles. He holds more than 40 patents. In recognition of his contribution to the laser research, he was invited to deliver the John Arthur Wilson Memorial Lecture. Dear Dr. Ramasamy, it's a great honor to me to give you the 2021 IULTCS Merit Award for Excellence in the Laser Industry. So I can show you the award. And of course, we will send it to your address. Thank you so much, Doctor. Thanks.
We want to hear a few words from Dr. Ramasamy, sorry for mispronouncing the name, to say a few words on the acceptance of the Merit Award. Our IT is trying to reach him.
Okay. Good morning, Excellency, Minister of Industry, Ethiopia, esteemed President, Mr. Liu Zugno, my long-term friends, Mr. Campbell Page, Emperor Golino, latest Tegmeyer, the chief architect of this whole event, Dr. Nuinjak, organizing convener, Mr. Hali Mariam, our own President, Arnab Jha, my dear friend and an academic relative, Tony, distinguished participants, the brothers and sisters of the world, totaling more than 145 participating in this event. For every one of you, I offer my most heartfelt greetings. Excellencies, we may remain separated in physical space. We may remain separated in physical space, but we continue to stay connected in mind and friendship space. Had the pandemic not limited international travel, I would have loved to pay my respect to the country that formed the cradle of human civilization itself. But then, I think our emotional connections have been plenty, and I'm very grateful that the IULTCS created an opportunity for me to really pay my respects to the whole community. I feel honored and humbled at the same time that IUCLTS chose to confer its merit award upon me. I remain grateful to IUCLTS and all the societies relating to leather. I see it as a rare privilege and accept this great honor. In professional life, most of us cross many milestones and landmarks. Some are more special than others. Such is my case today. I value this recognition more than anything else that I have received or may have received, including some national honors. It is because of the people who gave this award. It is because of the people who got this award before, and it is because of the spirit displayed behind this peer recognition. I thank my teachers, thank my family, my students, CLRA family, Indian leather industry, my brothers and sisters in the global leather family. Thank you, thank you, thank you very much.
I think now we can proceed to the Hersman lecture. As I was saying, this is in the memory of Professor Dr. Eckhart Hersman, and the 36th IULTS Congress Hersman's lecture presenter is Professor Anthony Dal Covington. Professor Covington has a doctorate in physical organic chemistry and postdoctoral research in physical chemistry. He was awarded the world's very first Doctor of Science degree in laser technology in 2010 by the University of Northampton. He authored over 300 technical publications, and together with co-authors also, Dr. Wills particularly, he published a second edition of his book, Laser Science. This was in 2019. He received the Alsop Award for Outstanding Scientific Contribution to the Laser Industry from the American Laser Chemists Association. Professor Covington has also authored over 300 technical publications. Professor Covington is also a former president of the International Union of Laser Technologists and Chemists Society, and IULTCS presented him the union's Merit of Award for Excellency in the laser industry in 2009. I now humbly request Professor Covington to give us the Hersman lecture. Let us welcome Professor Covington.
More of that.
Greetings from Northampton. This is the man we were honouring, Professor Dr. Eckhart Heidemann. I knew him quite well. We actually got on very well, even though he could be extremely prickly, but I did edit one of the chapters in his seminal book. So, collagen is complicated. And this was essentially the subject of the Heidemann Collagen Symposium, which was always held before the conference. But after he died, we decided that it should be kept in the form of a lecture. So we're going to talk about leather making and the thinking behind it, using science. So what I want to offer today is a way of allowing you to think rather differently about processing. And the point is it allows you to make real progress efficiently and effectively. So just out of interest, I did a survey of what was in the literature about leather science, and these are the subjects that I picked up. We're going to talk about sulfide in a minute. So pretty much the sort of topics that you might expect, but actually not very much in a decade. So what are we going to talk about today? Sulfide I mentioned, obviously chromium, my favorite subject, tanning theory, reagent fixation, reagent delivery, how to predict what's going on in the process vessel, and we're going to talk a little about the end of life. So coming back to sulfide, these are the sort of equations that you might be familiar with that have been well known in the literature. Top reaction there is just the splitting of cysteine into cysteine and back again. The bottom reaction is what we've used for the last 3/4 of a century. That's what we believed is the mechanism of keratin breakdown. But it can't be right, because sulfide as S2- does not exist in water. So we've got to rethink what's going on. The top equation, the rate equation, is what you might expect if sulfide did exist. The second rate equation is what we ought to modify it to, because top equation can't be right. So we've got to rethink exactly what's going on in that breakdown mechanism. And is the primary agent hydroxide, using sulfide as what used to be called a sharpening agent? So we've got to rethink the mechanism. Does it have any implications for industry? Well, we're not sure yet, but the one message is sulfide, hydrosulfide, buy the cheapest, it doesn't matter. So I want to go through some of the important principles underpinning leather making. And I'm going to simplify it, thinking about it as a two-stage process, two-step process. And it's trivializing it a bit. Step 1, take stuff out. Step 2, put stuff in. And that's essentially what we're doing. So let's look a bit at the beam house. There are essentially two aspects to beam house processes. We take stuff out, but which ones should we be taking out? We want to split the fiber structure, but exactly where do we want the attack to be directed? Let's think about skin components. There's a whole range of them. You're probably familiar with the sort of things on this list. Elastin is the one thing that we do know a great deal about, but in terms of albumins and globulins, type 3 collagen, exactly what should we be doing with those components of the skin? We don't know. There are others that are proteoglycans within the fiber structure and attached to the fiber structure. Dermatan sulfate we're pretty well familiar with. That gets taken out during conventional liming. But in vivo, it functions as a hydrating mechanism. So do we actually want to take that out? We don't actually know. All the processes that are conducted within the beam house range of reactions are hydrolytic. And we know that those reactions are controlled by time, pH, and temperature, but they are not targeted mechanisms. It's a sledgehammer to crack a walnut. You see a lot in the literature about using biochemical reagents, enzymes. Typically they're proteolytic, but they don't add any precision. They merely accelerate the damage. So if we understood better the structure of skin, the structure of collagen at a fundamental level, then we should get more precise outcomes. we hope. Let's take one aspect of liming. It causes swelling, we know about that. It's pretty much independent of ionic strength, so forget about putting electrolyte in to try and reduce the swelling, doesn't work. We know that if we overdo it, it's bad for the leather. And we tend to dismiss that, and we talk about controlled damage. It's not very helpful. What we need to be asking ourselves is swelling necessary for fiber splitting? Heidemann thought it wasn't, but I visited his lab and I saw some of the leathers he'd made by not splitting, by not liming, and they weren't terribly good, so the argument is not strong. Is there another way of approaching it? Well, what about David Rabinovich's ideas on lyotropy? That could be a way forward. Let's get down to putting stuff in. We talk about pre-tanning, tanning, and retanning, and a few other reactions. That merely tells you when you've done something. It only indicates chronology, nothing else. There's nothing special about a pre-tanning agent or a retanning agent. They're all the same tanning agents. We need to consider all fixation reactions. We need to look at processing as a stepwise mechanism of fixation, because that will allow us to predict the outcome of every reaction. And we need to think about processing as just a series of combinations. Let's look briefly at chrome tanning. You might be familiar with this depiction of what goes on during the tanning process. The top equilibrium only applies to solid salt, so we're not really interested in that. We come down to the middle structure. This is Gustafsson's model. This is the model that he used to try and calculate the amount of cross-linking in chrome tanning. Except it's wrong in pretty much every regard. You'll see that occasionally in the literature. Forget it. It doesn't exist in solution. So it cannot be the basis for chrome tanning. In fact, the fixed species is that tetrachromium species. And you'll notice that there's no sulfate there. So where is the sulfate? Is it part of the reaction? It probably has to be, because we know that if we tan so that only that species gets fixed, then the shrinkage temperature is only 80 degrees. So chromium is not a very good tanning agent. You need that second component. You need the sulfate. But it binds via the aquoligands. And we know it's there. We know it's not bound directly to the chromium because we looked at this structure with XAFs, an X-ray technique, and it didn't see any sulfate bound to the chromiums. So that means that chrome tanning is a two-component system. So what are the implications of this understanding of the chrome tanning process? So chrome is no more effective than any other metal. The high hydrothermal stability that we're used to depends on the second component. And usually it's sulfate, but you can use other second components. This is what we designate as the link-lock mechanism. And from this, we have a general theory of tanning. two components. One component, moderate shrinkage temperature. Two components, if they interact, high hydrothermal stability. Let's look at fixation. In order to understand what's going on and predict the outcome of any fixation reaction, we need to consider these two parts, these two elements to fixation. Because bear in mind, we are using a heterogeneous reaction. It's not a nice simple reaction in solution. We use a medium, but we're fixing from solution onto a solid, so it's heterogeneous. So the outcome depends on the way that the reagent interacts with the solvent, and then the way that the solvated reagent interacts with the substrate. So we have almost a stepwise mechanism, and the first part of it is transferring from solution into the environment of the substrate. It's a partitioning process, and this controls the rate of reaction, but not fixation. This is the delivery step. Now we're used to using water in our reactions, but this is a new type of liquid that is the coming thing. This is going to be big. This little video shows that counterintuitive effect of mixing two solids and you get a liquid. That's an ionic liquid. Now, it's been estimated in this technology there's something like 10 to the 18 possibilities of ionic liquids. So we should be able to find one that suits each reaction that we want to conduct. The second element to the fixation is the interaction, the reaction between the reagent and the substrate. And essentially it starts off as electrostatic. It might even finish as electrostatic. So we're talking about charge-charge, hydrogen bonding, hydrophobic bonding, and it quite likely, in fact for many reagents, this is the final step. That charge-charge interaction is highly dependent on exactly what the charges are, what the magnitude is. For the substrate, it's controlled by the isoelectric point, which is related to the ratio of the basic and acidic groups on the substrate. And if we bind species, whatever species, onto the substrate, that is likely to change that ratio, therefore it changes the isoelectric point, which is the point on the pH scale where the charge is 0. But either side of that point, you get charge, and the further you go away from the isoelectric point, the charge gets bigger. It would be nice if we could easily and quickly estimate the isoelectric point. Well, we can't do that in the tannery. But we know that it's going to change with every reaction. We know the direction, but not the magnitude. We can only guesstimate what the magnitude is. And what that means also is that the charge pH profile is going to change at every point in the process. Again, we need to estimate what is going to happen at every stage. So the charge is going to make a big difference to the kinetics of transfer. And it's also going to influence that fixation reaction, that electrostatic reaction. So the charge on the substrate and the charge on the reagent is going to determine whether you get penetration or you get surface reaction. vital in terms of the outcome of processing. If it goes all the way through, the properties are affected. If it only reacts on the surface, then the aesthetics are affected. And the tanner knows which of those he wants or she wants. That electrostatic interaction can change into covalent reaction. Depends on the chemistry. We know it happens with chromium. We know it happens with covalent reactions from condensed polyphenols. It's a bit less common than the electrostatic endpoint. What you need to take away from this is that all fixation reactions are fundamentally the same. You don't have to learn a whole lot of reactions that apply to individual reagents. It's all the same. It's only the chemistry that changes, the affinity that changes, and the number of steps in the fixation process. But all that is knowable and predictable. The key word here is the system. At any point in a process going on in a tannery, the system is the reagent, the substrate, and the medium. And all those can be manipulated to the tanner's advantage. The process is a series of steps. So it's an accumulation of fixation. It used to be said that the properties were determined by the first tanning agent that's applied. Well, it's not always true. We need to think about processing as simply an accumulation of combinations. That's all it is, one after another, an accumulation of combinations. And the outcome depends on quite how each reagent interacts with the substrate that, of course, has been modified by all the previous reactions. We can simplify this a little bit because in combinations, there are only three options. Either the reagents interact independently, so they're not interacting together. This is probably because they're going for different reaction sites on the substrate. The order of addition probably doesn't matter. And the effect that you get depends on how much of each reagent that you put in. And the kinetics of binding can influence the relative effects. But in terms of the technological outcome, the combinations are roughly additive. Surprisingly, you can get antagonistic reactions. You only need to look down any industrial process and look at the chemistry of all the reagents that are being added, and you can see that you get multiple additions of chemical species of the same type. Well, they're going to compete. So it's antagonistic. So the competitiveness of any one of those reagents depends on how much you're putting in. You know, the big guns outweigh the little guns. They might interact, but it's of no importance the way that they interact. And the outcome of the reaction, or the combination, is determined by the winner in the competition. The third type of combination is synergistic reactions. Synergy is defined as the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. like link lock, you have two reactions that we know what the outcome is. So you know what the outcome is of chrome by itself. Shrinkage temperature rises to 80. If you put sulfate into a system of just pickle pelt, will the shrinkage temperature rise? Yeah, a couple of degrees. But that added together is nowhere near the shrinkage temperature that you would expect. That's synergy. So, first reagent creates the link, second, the lock. And that means that the order of addition is going to be critical. And what we get here is a new species formed. The more stable the interaction around the triple helix, the more shrinking is made difficult, and we observe that as a higher shrinkage temperature. And the combination of the components is somewhat additive, but not the shrinkage temperature. Let's look at this diagrammatically. These are linking reactions. This is in between two triple helices. So all reactions conform to this type of pattern. The one on the left is what I'm proposing is the reaction that chromium undergoes. Reaction in the middle might be oxazolidine, might be glutaraldehyde. On the right, possibly veg tanning. You might think of the one on the right as actually the classical understood way that the chromium allegedly cross-links. Cross-linking is a term I never use now. Doesn't exist. So, and you might think, well, the one on the left is the more likely. Energetically, the other two definitely impose an entropy penalty. So if we put in the second reagent, we're locking those primary linking agents together. You're making a matrix around the triple helices, and that gives you the high hydrothermal stability. And note that if you pile in the linking reactions, that will not give you a high hydrothermal stability. If you think, well, can that be right? Well, think about veg tanning. You put in, what, 30% veg tan? What's the shrinkage temperature? 80 degrees. So, what are the implications of this way of thinking? Link lock defines the outcome of tanning. It tells you whether the outcome is going to be moderate shrinkage temperature or high shrinkage temperature. It explains the outcome of all tanning processes, known and unknown. And it leads us into that general theory of fixation. If we understand the principles of fixation, that allows us to predict process outcomes. And more than that, we can actually predict processes for product outcomes. So this way of thinking is extremely powerful. You need to think about everything. Any reaction that fixes stuff onto the substrate is going to influence the outcome of your overall process. So there are plenty of other fixing reactions that you need to consider. Water resistance, fire resistance, that sort of thing. the stepwise mechanism is exactly the same, because the chemistries by which these reagents fix is the same. They're tanning reactions. Typically, the offers might be smaller, but it doesn't matter. It all adds up, and you need to know the chemistry of every reagent that you're putting into the system. To get an accurate idea of what the outcome of processing is, you need to analyze change at every point in the process. You need to understand the outcome of any change, and you need to know what the impact of the chemistries of all reagents is. And we need to also know what the technological effect. So this is where science and technology bump up against each other. It's all very well understanding the outcome of chemistry, but you need to know what the outcome of technological application of a reagent is, and know what the principle of accumulation of change means in terms of process outcomes. So, what about predicting processes? Well, there's a series of questions that you need to ask yourself in order to predict the process that you need to get an outcome that you have in mind. You need to know what you want and what you don't want. Can you modify a current process? Are you aiming for tweaking of processes or creating extreme performance? Can you do it with conventional reagents, or are you going to have to investigate new ones? And what approach do you need in order to apply these novel reagents? So can you do it, if you like, conventionally? That we think about processing as beam house, typically pickle, tan, retan, dye, fat liquor. Is that the sort of step change that you're going to be able to use? Or do you have to rethink the relationships between those different steps? We need to get fixed in our minds that current technology has developed. It's traditional and it's convenient. But it's not be all and end all. It's not written in stone. What about wider considerations? We need to consider what the limits might be in our thinking. What about compact processing? The role of biochemistry in making leather and the environmental impact. And of course, cradle to cradle. End of life is a problem. So let's briefly look at what the options are for end of life. Well, we can recover leather, we can recycle it, we can reconstitute it. The big problem is that it's normally contaminated with a whole load of other components. Think of shoe construction, for example, and trying to recycle the leather content. But we can recover chromium, we can recover protein if we want. We know about denaturation, degradation. We can use the leather for making biogas. Interestingly, chrome leather is very good for making biogas. Veg leather is terrible for making biogas. Problem is, you degrade the leather, veg tan is unaffected, it's still reactive, so it tends to tan the bugs and stops the reaction going. But we can be pretty crafty about this. In the work done in our department, we found that a redox mechanism applies to collagen degradation. So we can introduce a redox element into the leather and therefore sow the seeds of the leather's own destruction. So back to the question, what's the use of leather science? It makes R&D logical. It stops us going down dead ends. It tries to eliminate those assumptions or wrong premises. We had an example of this earlier on in sulfide. We thought that sulfide was the active species. We have to rethink that. And it allows us to take quantum steps forward, not just baby steps, quantum steps. This is a paradigm shift in thinking. We have pretty much all the tools in order to make that change. We really want to make new and novel leathers to maintain our markets against the competition, but also to be sustainable. I'll leave you with a couple of quotes. One from Henri Sommier, all science is right until proved otherwise. That seems reasonable. And so I made up a quote. So, my challenge to the new, the young leather scientists, prove me right or prove me wrong. Either way, leather science benefits. So, thank you and goodbye.
Thanks a lot, Professor Covington. Really, you took us the science, technology part of the tanning process. We enjoyed a lot, have gained a lot from his very rich experience which he shared us. We are very much grateful, really, for getting time to reach to us to present this this month's lecture. With that, we will end the opening part. We will break for some 15 minutes for tea before starting the marathon of actual papers, scientific papers of including today for the next 3 days duration. Thank you very much. Let us have a 15 minutes break. Thank you. Welcome back after this short tea break.